Daily City Center Radio. It is episode 183, and I am your host, Christian Sanger. Today is Monday, October 16th, 2023. Here's hoping you had a great weekend. I know it's been a little rainy at times and a little cool and overcast, but not too bad. Still like in the 70s, it feels like most of the day. So, not as hot as it was leading into the month at times, but certainly not as cold as other parts of the country. So even though it was a little overcast, not too bad, right? It was still okay to get out there and do some things. And I hope you were able to do that and have a lovely weekend. And here's hoping your start to the week is off to a good start so far. I had a pretty quiet weekend, no events, nothing to report back on, although tonight, I'm recording this on Sunday, I am going to see the legendary Steve Martin and Martin Short at the North Charleston Performing Arts Center. I'm very much looking forward to that. They were supposed to perform here, I think it was the year before the pandemic, and I had tickets and I was looking forward to it, and then they ended up canceling for some reason. It wasn't related to the pandemic. Some scheduling thing happened, and they ended up canceling a handful of months before the show was planned. And I was pretty bummed that they didn't, make an announcement of a future show. But I assumed they'd probably come back at some point. And of course, the pandemic delayed a lot of that. But they've been back out on the road doing their show, and finally going to get the chance to see them tonight. So looking forward to that. But otherwise, been pretty quiet around here. And even with the news, at least locally, not a ton to report back on. So today's show might not be super long, but it is full of great info and content, of course. Before we jump into that, I do want to say thanks to a handful of people who, number one, anytime someone listens and comments, hey, I liked your episode, or, thanks for covering this or whatever. I really appreciate it. Someone tweeted at me this weekend with some horror movie suggestions, which was great. So I've added some things to my watch list for the month of October, and just wanted to say I appreciate all of that. But without any further ado, let's get into the news. Nancy Mace, who claimed this past week that she doesn't need to do performative politics because she is a serious politician, despite her saying that while wearing a T-shirt that she put a red letter A on, claiming it was her scarlet letter from the Kevin McCarthy vote, and how people are trying to silence her because she's a woman, and whatever other nonsense she said. No, Nancy, people don't respect you because you're attention seeking and you care more about making viral moments, going on TV, trying to have little snarky gotcha moments on Twitter. It's all for attention. That's why people don't like you in either party. It has nothing. Well, let's not say nothing. Part of the reason is certainly that vote that Republicans are angry with her, as she went in with some of the crazies of the party like Matt Gaetz. And so, sure, I'm sure some members of her party, that is a big factor, but it's a combination of things. And with that, all this attention seeking and some changes that I feel she's made, since she's gotten into office, where she seemed to be kind of cozying up to Trump, more so than she had in the past. Not in necessarily overt ways like, talking to him or anything or making appearances with him, but just some of her rhetoric was starting to kind of lean more right, more MAGA, and her involvement with this impeachment inquiry into President Biden, which so far has come up with absolutely nothing, is an example of that. And just some of the things she says online. And, she showed flashes of this in the past, but she seemed to kind of try to get away from Trump a little bit. And even at times, despite, me and many others mocking that she claims to be a moderate when she's nothing close to being a moderate, it did seem there were times that she was trying to at least give off the impression that she was moderate and was, trying to make decisions or comments that showed that. But it seems she's just all pretext of that is gone now. And now we probably know why, even though the rumors I'm about to tell you seem like they might just be coming from her. But yes, it appears somehow, whether it's Nancy herself or not, her name has been floating out there as a potential vice president pick for Donald Trump. And then all of a sudden, all these theatrics, nonsense, and change of tone makes a whole lot of sense. But is there any truth to it, or is this just something Mace and her team maybe put out there to try to, again, get headlines and attention, and maybe even get the vice president nod, which I'm sure she would want. Why else would you float that? So here's why it seems a little iffy, especially at this point. You may remember President Trump was recently in South Carolina over the summer, and he's been here. I think just 2 weeks ago he was back, and she was nowhere to be found. She wasn't, one of the speakers. She wasn't in attendance, and you would think if there was some reality to this, she would have been there. Now, prior to these rumors and things, it really shouldn't be that surprising. The two don't seem to really like each other, despite the fact Mace worked for his campaign, or if not directly with his campaign, she helped back in 2015, 16, leading into that election with getting, his platform out there here in South Carolina. But things changed, in her first year in office. That was when, just a handful of days into, getting into her office in Congress is when January 6th happened. And at the time, she, criticized Trump, as she should have, over that day. And then, of course, as it comes time for her reelection, Trump endorsed her challenger, Katie Arrington, because she is far more MAGA and way more right than Nancy Mace is, at least, again, at the time. And that led to Nancy Mace doing that weird video that she posts on social media outside of Trump Tower that was so bizarre. So, slowly she started to get back in his good graces, or at least was trying to get back in his good graces. So now these rumors are out there, and it does appear that Mace is the source of them, because she's apparently been telling Republicans in private that she has a real shot at being named Trump's vice presidential nominee for the 2024 election. And this is according to 6 Republicans who were familiar with these discussions, and they spoke to the Daily Beast, who reported on this. 3 South Carolina Republicans specifically have also said they've heard about Mace floating herself as the VP pick, dating as far back as early summer. Now, again, it clearly seems that she's the source of this, and comments from Trump's campaign make it seem that is very, very likely. The Daily Beast spoke to some folks, including who they say a source close to Trump, said the former president, quote, absolutely hates Nancy Mace, end quote, while a former senior aide to the Congresswoman put it a little bit more bluntly. The former aide said that they would see Trump pick Mike Pence before he picks Nancy Mace. Mace herself declined to comment for the story, which is shocking for many reasons. But so again, when you're getting people coming out forcefully saying that, it makes it seem even more likely that she's the source behind these rumors. Some people were trying to piece together what a connection might be, despite the fact that Trump and Mace don't seem to, get along. They do have a connection. There's a gentleman by the name of Chris LaCivita, who is Trump's 2024 campaign advisor, and he used to be Mace's former political strategist. So some people are thinking maybe he has something to do with it. And there is a source to the Daily Beast that said that, yes, that's exactly what happened, is that this gentleman put out her name. Now, when he was asked about it, he was pretty forceful, saying that that's not the case. He said, quote, I was a former consultant for Representative Mace, but it ends there. Any suggestion or rumor that I have been advocating for anyone as VP is complete horseshit. The pick of a vice presidential candidate is President Trump's, and President Trump's alone, end quote. So that's pretty direct. Yeah, we know politicians and staffers, and 2 politicians lie, and so who knows? But it seems pretty forceful that nope, that is not what is happening here at all. Meanwhile, Mace's former aide, confirmed what most of us thought, which is that Nancy Mace doesn't even actually like Donald Trump. Specifically, the aide said that she despises him, and then said, quote, she would call him an idiot and other sorts of words. She is not a friend of Trump, and Trump is not a friend of hers, end quote. So a former Mace staffer is saying they don't like each other. And that the LaCivita, who has a connection between the two, says he's not putting these rumors out there. So what is the truth? Who knows? It certainly seems like the source of these rumors is Nancy Mace herself, and it certainly explains some of the, again, the theatrics, the attention getting, which she always was doing, but it just seems it's ramped up over the last few months. And certainly seems she's leaning more into some MAGA type rhetoric, and who knows? And them not liking each other doesn't mean anything. There's a lot of people in Trump's world that he doesn't like, and probably doesn't like him back, that he works with. These things happen in politics. Even some of his biggest defenders, like Lindsey Graham, has had moments of calling him out and Trump calling him out, but they remain like close. So that's not necessarily a be all end all, Trump not liking Nancy Mace, at least according to these quotes, and her not liking him. They could absolutely still, make a deal with the devil essentially, and work with each other. So who knows? But it certainly seems like from this article that Nancy Mace is the source of this rumor. And it certainly seems that she's doing it for attention and maybe trying to manifest it. Just put it out in the world. Just tell people that you're in the running, even if you're not. Have them speak to reporters off the record, put out some, rumors out there, and then guess what? All the attention right back on her. So it certainly worked, and here I am talking about it, and it's giving her the attention she definitely wants. And part of me with some of her, social media stunts and whatnot. Sometimes I hesitate to share them because I know it's just a ploy for attention, and then I'm just adding on it. She's getting plenty without me. Obviously, I'm not. I'm not a make or break by any sense of any stretch of the imagination. But I feel like it should be pointed out, and hopefully people will see just how brazen she is and how clear that all she really seems to care about is attention. And that's why people in both parties don't like her. It has nothing to do, with her votes. Sure, some are angered about the McCarthy vote and maybe a couple others, but the real dislike for her is that they don't take her seriously. At least these are some of the quotes we're hearing in local or in, national reporting. Is that a lot of people think she's just unserious and just wants attention, and it's hard not to disagree with that when it seems pretty clear that's exactly what's going on. Meanwhile, the Charleston City paper did a story on the Charleston County School District Board of Trustees. I highly recommend you all read that. The link is going to be in the show notes. Basically, they just broke down donations to the candidates and okay, how did these Moms for Liberty backed candidates have such a good run? There's 8 candidates that the group, the local chapter of Moms for Liberty, had endorsed. 5 of them won. And so they were looking, hey, maybe money has something to do with it. Well, they found that in the grand scheme of things, it really didn't cost that much for conservatives to take over the Charleston County School Board. Donations to the 5 candidates that ended up winning raised, just over $127,000, according to an analysis of campaign disclosure reports that were on file with the South Carolina State Ethics Commission. Now, that sounds like, it's a lot of money depending on, it's all relative, of course, right? So in politics, that's not a lot of money, especially when that's the total of 5 candidates who won. You see donations like that just for, one candidate in some races. So, relatively, they didn't have to spend a lot of money, but I'm certain it certainly helped. So they break it down a little bit. They also talk about the group and the meetings they have and how they put out these endorsements, and how a lot of people didn't realize who they were putting money behind or voting for. They just thought, I'm helping a friend, or in some instances thought Moms for Liberty was doing what they profess to do, and then turns out they're not at all what they claim to be. And people are starting to realize that. So they talk about some people who are having some regrets over that. So it's an interesting article. We'll break it down a little bit more here. One of the candidates, which is Pam McKinney, she's now the chair of the school board. She raised the most, just under $97,500. A lot of that, the city paper says, comes from friends that live south of Broad. No surprise there. As well as an array of conservative, politicians like Nikki Haley, for instance. State Senator Chip Campson and South Carolina Rep. Mark Smith. They all donated to her campaign. 61 of her donors gave the maximum of $1,000. 5 gave anywhere from $501 to $999. And then 30 others gave $500 each. So she by far had, the biggest donations on hand. The rest, were actually a little bit lower than you would expect. So again, money isn't necessarily the reason they won. It certainly helped, and we'll have to donate to non-Moms for Liberty back candidates to help them, get their names out there for future elections. But it's more than that. It's also sharing the story of who Moms for Liberty actually is, what sort of things they're doing versus what they claim that they're going to do. So it's not just money, but it certainly helps. And this article does a great job of kind of showing the different factors that went into it and just, again, breaking down what donations each candidate got. You can even see some of the people who gave that max donation. They're listed in the story. Now, the city paper talked to some of those folks, and said, hey, like, why did you donate to them? Or did you know about their stances? And several of them said, oh, they were just donating to a friend, a longtime family friend, a direct friend. They were just helping them out, not really paying attention to their platform or what they planned on doing. And some of them say now that they've seen what's happened, they're disturbed by, all these actions that have been going on with the school board and with their link to Moms for Liberty. One person, and all these folks didn't want their names out there because, again, these were guys and women who donated to friends. So they probably don't want their friends to know how they really feel, but basically said, if I had known all this, and if I had known they were back for Moms for Liberty, or if I, understood the group more as I do now, I never would have donated, and I'm definitely not going to donate to the reelection campaign. So that is one good takeaway from the story, is that some of the folks who gave money to these candidates are regretting it and wish maybe they'd paid more attention and didn't just give out money to friends, And of course, if they're friends with these folks, they probably didn't think they would go on to be this dysfunctional and be making the kinds of decisions they have been. So again, very interesting story. It's good to see that people are starting to shy away from those candidates and are starting to see what this group actually does. But it's going to take more than that. It's going to take more than just a handful of people regretting what happened. Again, it's going to take donations, yes, and it's going to take spreading the word. So when it's time for elections, we'll be sure to see which candidates are backed by Moms for Liberty, which support Moms for Liberty, and who is talking as if, they're a member of that group. And then making sure that we push the other candidates so we can get these schools back on track instead of these ridiculous political games that they're playing. So go check out the article again. I think it's a very interesting read. A lot of good points in there. And again, there were some things I was a little surprised by. I assumed there was a lot more money involved. And of course, they had the majority of the money between the candidates. So that's no surprise, but it's just not as high as you would think, which also means that the money differences could easily be made up. And that's a big thing in politics, because money is used for advertising, for signs, for social media boosted posts, whatever it may be. These are all things that can help raise a candidate's profile. So go check it out and then start getting ready for those elections. And I know it seems like it's nonstop with off-cycle elections. We got a presidential one coming up. So much to pay attention to, but we'll try to keep it easy for you when these local elections come back around. That'll do it for this edition of Holy City Center Radio. I hope you have a great week. I will talk to you all again on Wednesday. Thank you to Lindsay Marie Collins with LMC Soundsystem for producing this and every episode of Holy City Center Radio. And thank you to Tyler Boone, whose music you hear in each and every show as well. If you can, please subscribe to this podcast, like it, review it, rate it, whatever you can do. It's a great help. You can also go to holycitycenter.com/shop to pick up some merchandise, or go to patreon.com/holycitycenter where you can sign up for a support tier. All that stuff helps out greatly, and I really appreciate it. I'll talk to you on Wednesday. Until then, good night and good luck.